answer it by shouting her name a few times as loud as you can. Do we think Becky Sale deserves the 2019 Outliving It Award?
This is essential right now. I love how I just opened it to Fuji's. Do we think Becky Sale deserves us? The font is like size 52. I want to start by saying thank you. Thank you to First Ascents. Thank you to all the amazing staff and volunteers I've been lucky enough to know. Thank you to my FD friends who are here supporting me. And thank you to my amazing parents who are here tonight and have been with me every step of the way through my cancer journey. They've listened to me sob more times than I can count, talked me through panic attacks, walked me down the hospital hall after surgeries, given me hope and made me laugh so many times. I love you, Mom and Dad. My story starts back in 2010 and is not your typical cancer journey. In fact, it took me 4 years to even say the C word, cancer. What I have doesn't fit in a box. My story is about being alone. My story is about learning to be vulnerable. And my story is about how First Ascents taught me that you have to feel to heal. And being vulnerable is beautiful and strong, not weak. In 2009, I was 21 years old and had just graduated college. I started my first job in corporate communications that allowed me to travel around the country. My first placement for work was in Boston, and then I moved to Tucson, Arizona for 8 months. My 22nd birthday was around the corner, and I was finishing up my stint in Arizona when my world was rocked. I had noticed some pressure in my butt for a couple of months, and at first thought nothing of it. Then it got more and more noticeable. I even felt something pop when I did sit-ups. Finally, it got so annoying that I made an appointment with a colorectal doctor to get things checked. 2 days before that appointment, I noticed a large lump down under. I called my mom panicking, who told me to call the colorectal surgeon I was about to see. When I got him on the phone, he was extremely arrogant and dismissive and said he would see me in a couple of days. A few days later, he performed a full exam and said that everything was, quote, stone cold normal. I asked him about the very apparent lump, and he not only brushed it off, but quickly corrected away a named part of my anatomy. He said it was probably hemorrhoids and sent me home. Weeks passed, as did boxes of suppositories. In my gut, I knew something wasn't right. So I got in with another doctor at the same practice who ordered a CT scan. I'll never forget sitting in that doctor's office in Arizona, all by myself, thousands of miles away from close friends and family. The doctor pulled up the images from the scan. She looked extremely alarmed as she began to speak and point out different organs. This is your rectum, these are your ovaries, this is your bladder, and this is the mass. It was this huge thing wedged between all my organs and more than double the size of any of them. She said she thought it was a colorectal cyst and that I would need surgery, but she'd really never seen anything like it. I heard the word surgery and began to panic. I barely made it to my car, where I called my mom, hyperventilating and crying. Needless to say, the first doctor I saw at the practice was very wrong. I did not have a stone cold normal exam. To add insult to injury, I later got my hands on his medical notes, and in them he called me a young female with perceived pain. My mom later nicknamed him Dr. Dick. other people too. At that point, my family went into full-on attack mode. My mom got me in with the head of surgery at Albany Medical Center, while I quickly packed up my life in Arizona because I was set to move back east for work. The size of the mass was so alarming that they told me not to lift anything heavy. I had to ask strangers to help me put my carry-on bag up top on the plane. It felt so foreign being robbed of my basic faculties. A few tests later, it was surgery day. My mom drove me to the hospital that morning, and my dad, brother, and sister planned to meet us there. I will never, ever forget that morning. It was 5:45 a.m. and pitch black outside, and my mom held my hand the whole way there as I cried. I felt more indescribable fear and uncertainty than I had ever felt. After getting my IV, the nurse anesthetist came over and asked if I was ready. I was not ready. I felt like I wanted to scream, cry, jump out of my skin, and escape all at the same time. When the surgeon opened me up, what he found was even worse than anticipated. The mass, as he later told us, the size of a baby's head, was the size of a baby's head. When we told him how Dr. Dick said the pressure I was feeling was perceived and in my head, he challenged us by saying, no, it was the size of your head. My surgeon was completely perplexed by the consistency of the mass. He knew that it was not a cyst, but some sort of tumor. He called in a pediatric surgeon to see if she knew what it was. No luck. The whole hospital was stumped and had textbooks open while I was on the table. At this point, his goal was to get out as much of the mass as he could without permanently affecting my quality of life. After the surgery, I woke up with a bandage that began above my belly button and continued to way down south. I had 32 staples. The nurses said that taking walks was the best way to heal. The afternoon of the surgery, I worked with my parents and the nurse just to slide my legs over to the left and dangle them off the hospital bed. I never felt such exhaustion, and I wasn't even the one moving my legs. They had to do it for me. You don't realize how much you use a part of your body until you're without it. I couldn't even clear my throat without excruciating pain. Laying in the hospital bed, it was so hard to believe that just a month prior, I was an active, athletic, busy 21-year-old, and now I couldn't cough, move my legs, or bathe myself. I had been robbed of my independence. I didn't have a choice but to let people help me. 10 days after surgery, I went back to see my doctor. He told me and my parents that the mass was not just a colorectal cyst, but something called aggressive angiomyxoma, a rare soft tissue sarcoma. At the time, I hardly understood the word sarcoma, but I knew it wasn't good. My parents asked if it was cancer. The doctor took a deep breath, looked at us, and said, "That's a complicated question." The short answer, yes. But the reality was, my diagnosis was uncharted territory. My surgeon had never seen my sarcoma before, and he said we'd have to go to Boston or New York City for treatment. He was the chief of surgery, and he had never seen it. Of course, when I got home, I went right to Google, which only pulled up a few hits, and my sister's grad school science journals provided just a bit more insight. I traveled to Sloan Kettering in New York City. They had only seen one case of aggressive angiomyxoma. Then we went to Dana-Farber, who had also only seen one case before. I quickly learned that there had only been 250 reported cases of my cancer diagnosis in the world ever. My cancer doesn't operate like other cancers. It doesn't respond to chemo or radiation. What it does do is come back over and over in the same spot, affecting all the neighboring organs in my pelvis. The only cure would be to get every single cancer cell out of my body, which is nearly impossible because the beast was touching everything. My ovaries, rectum, bladder, uterus, colon. I was told that my tumor had probably been growing for about 7 to 10 years before they found it. After my first surgery, I could still feel a part of the tumor that the surgeon had missed. My doctors at Dana-Farber, where I'm treated, told me I would need to have a second surgery in an even more precarious location than before. The thought of doing everything all over was incomprehensible. I couldn't imagine going through the recovery process again less than a year after my first surgery. Somehow, though, I made it through my second surgery, only to feel the tumor growing again months later. For a minute, I thought I had my life back, but once again, scans showed that the tumor was back and surgery number 3 was scheduled. I remember sitting up in my hospital bed after this surgery and just looking at my sister and my mom and sobbing. What was my life? How did I get here? At this point, I had 3 consecutive surgeries at the ages of 22, 23, and 24 years old. I was living scan to scan every 3 months, all while trying not to miss a beat in my career. Each time I went in for an MRI, I knew the outcome because I could literally feel the tumor growing. One thing became very clear: surgery wasn't working. A few months after I recovered from my 3rd surgery, which the surgeon was nearly 100% positive was successful, I felt the tumor coming back and called for an early MRI. My doctors insisted it wasn't possible, but scans showed the impossible. The tumor was back and bigger than ever, extending from my pelvis up into my sternum. After my 3 surgeries failed to stop my cancer, we turned to several hormonal suppressants to manage the tumor. My treatment was all trial and error, but by some miracle, it worked. My tumor shrunk and remained stable. I've been on these suppressants for 7 years now. Can I be on these drugs my whole life? The doctors don't know. They don't have that kind of data. I cannot tell you how many doctors have looked me in the eye and said, I've never heard of cancer before. The difficult part of having a rare cancer no doctor has ever heard of is there is no data, no previous cases, no new research to learn from. I'm blazing my own trail. As humans, I think some of the hardest things in life are uncertainty, change, being vulnerable, and coping with emotional pain. Being in my 20s and going through cancer was isolating. I didn't have anyone to turn to. There were no support groups for my cancer, no message boards. And to find out that my cancer was chronic, that I was going to live with this tumor in my body for the rest of my life, couldn't wrap my head around it. For the next couple of years, I white-knuckled it through and forged ahead with my job, volunteer commitments, and coaching girls lacrosse. I realized I wasn't fully dealing with my cancer. I pretended I was, but to really face it, I needed to take care of my mind, my emotions, and my spirit. What I needed was people who could really understand what I was going through. To be honest, I never thought I was one of them, a cancer survivor, or a liver, as I like to say. I still feel like a bit of an imposter. We all have preconceived notions of what cancer is and how it impacts life, until we go through it ourselves. I didn't get chemo or radiation. My disease isn't as visible, but I still have so many scars. My nurse had been telling me to apply to an organization called First Descents for years. She is my loud Italian aunt from another life. I trust her. She was there every time I was unhinged as yet another scan showed my tumor was back. She was there when I wanted to punch someone because my friend was complaining about how scared she was to get her flu shot. She was there when I just needed to feel like a normal 20-something. After a lot of persuasion from her, I applied. I emailed First Descents and said I wanted to sign up for a program, but I needed to talk to an alumni first. I needed to be sure these were my kind of people. Going away with a bunch of strangers and talking about my feelings was super intimidating. First Descents set me up to chat with an alumni named Scooter. I'll never forget sitting in the parking lot of the mall and talking to this amazing human. I hung up the phone and said to myself, damn, these are my kind of people. I can do this, and I need to do this. By August of 2015, I was on my way to a rock climbing program in Estes Park, Colorado. I'd never been rock climbing before and was terrified of heights. I thought, since we were all pretty inexperienced climbers, they would go easy on us. They most certainly did not. That week, I was pushed further than I thought I was capable of. On the last day of the program, we climbed a multi-pitch route. I was scared shitless. After the second pitch, I was hanging off the side of a cliff, and I started to panic from the sheer exposure. When it was time to keep climbing, I told my guide Hans that I was freaking out and I was about to cry. What he said to me in that moment unlocked a new part of myself. He said, "Totes, you're hanging off the side of a cliff. You should be scared. Let it out." So I did. I cried while hanging more than 100 feet off the side of a mountain. Then I found a strength deep down in me that I didn't know I had, and I climbed all the way to the top. The entire time, I knew my First Ascents family was above and below me, supporting and cheering me on. I felt so safe, held, and seen. It was okay to be vulnerable. It was okay to cry. And it was okay to be scared shitless through the uncertainty and fear. I was pushing myself to places I never thought I could go while living with cancer. That is the power of First Ascents. That is the confidence that my FD tribe instilled in me, and that is outliving it. That night at campfire, Hans started tearing up while reflecting on the climb. This tough rock climbing guy was crying and talking about how proud he was. How there was nothing like the hugs he shared at the top. In that moment, I realized the power of FD extends well beyond the participants. It penetrates the souls of everyone involved. When you do something you never thought was possible, especially after you've been in a place post-surgeries where you couldn't walk, couldn't bathe yourself, and had tubes coming out of your body, the feeling on the other side is pretty indescribable. It opened up a whole new way of living for me, for Totes Magoats. Without my First Ascents family, I wouldn't have found the confidence to live so boldly after and with cancer. FT gave me a tribe who I could cut right through the bullshit with and talk about anything. Immediately, we were able to trade cancer and surgery stories and bond over how gosh darn hard it is to go through this as a young adult. There were plenty of tears that week, but even more laughs. Even now, when cancer and life all feels like too much, I pick up the phone and call one of my fellow tribe members. The challenges we face as young adults and the thoughts and feelings that go through our heads feel pretty crazy and unbearable sometimes. Hardcore, Hugo, flip-flop, and so many more of my friends made me realize I am not alone. I am not crazy, and I'm allowed to feel what I'm feeling. A couple of years after my week-long program, I joined First Ascents for 10 days of exploring Chiang Mai, Thailand. I never thought I could do an international trip with a whole other group of cancer strangers. But FD was there to propel me further and further. One of the key life-altering moments for me in Thailand was the cave. We were going to rappel hundreds of feet into blackness and then traverse through the darkness. It was new, it was unknown, and it was definitely outside my comfort zone. As we navigated through the rock formation to reach the rappel, I was sweating like hell, and my mind was going crazy. I knew what I had to do. I let it out. Once again, I cried. Hanging off this cliff, wedged up to this adorable Thai rock climbing instructor who barely spoke English. Talk about vulnerable. But there was no question about whether or not I was going to do the rappel. First Ascents had showed me that I could, and I knew I had to, because of the feeling on the other side, the feeling of living life bigger, the feeling of being out living it. After we all reached the bottom, we continued through the cave until we arrived at a small pond of water. We locked arms in a circle and turned off our headlamps. It was a darkness I've never felt, a silence I've never heard. My emotions, my cancer journey, my hopes, my ambitions, my challenges, and my grief, it all felt so held. On First Ascents programs, we light candles to honor those we've lost to cancer. In the intense darkness at the bottom of the cave in Thailand, we lit candles and floated them in a little pond of water. The whole cave lit up from the glow of those we were honoring. Together, we stood there facing the harshest realities of cancer, the uncertainty of our mortality, and the tragedy of our shared loss. We were all crying tears of sadness because of those we've lost to the monster that is cancer. But we all knew our lives were so much better, bigger, and brighter with each other in it. When my therapist tells me to think of my safe place, I always bring myself back to the cave. First Ascents has given me a community to share my pain with and to celebrate the opportunity to live with. When I'm feeling alone in my cancer challenges, I have my tribe. Emotions no longer bottle up inside of me. My FD family helps me cope with my chronic diagnosis and is with me every step of the way. For so many years, I was afraid to show the world all of Becky, scared that I came with too much, and worried that people would feel bad for me. But First Ascents has allowed me to show Totes to the world, a feisty, strong, spunky, adventurous spirit that can help others by telling my story. FD has shown me that I should love with my heart wide open. We are all beautifully broken, but that's what makes us unique and gives us the ability to form deeper connections with one another. Because of First Ascents and the community it has connected me to, fear no longer holds me back. Now, when I see the edge of my comfort zone, I move toward it and then beyond it. I take a leap of faith and I drop into the rappel.
Totes, you rock!